Alright, hey guys, it's David here from Cosplayer Goes 2, or actually Voices Extremis now. And today I'm here with John Patrick Lowrie, aka the voice of the sniper in TF2.
Hi everybody.
Alright, so Mr. Lowrie, basically the first thing here is we just like to talk about voice acting in general. So, what made you become a voice actor?
Well, I was always interested in that kind of thing. Always interested in accent works and dialects and stuff like that, even since I was a tiny little kid, like 5, 6 years old. But really, I kind of fell into it. I was a guitarist and a composer, and I like to say that I'm the only person I've ever met who became an actor because the work was steadier and the pay was better. But when you're a guitarist and a composer, almost anything has steadier work and better pay. I met my wife, Ellen McLean, voice of GLaDOS in Portal games and lots of other stuff. When I had a gig playing guitar for a European tour of a Broadway show, and she was in the cast, and I was in the orchestra playing guitar and banjo, and and I'd always acted as well, just in school and stuff like that. But I was kind of, for various reasons, needing a new direction to go, and I started working in theater. And then when we moved out to Seattle in 1989, and ever since I was in radio club. Well, so first off, let's start at the beginning. The beginning is that my voice never changed. The nurses in the hospital I was born in Honolulu called me the B-29 because I cried 2 octaves lower than all the other babies. When I was in first grade, they made me the narrator of the Christmas pageant because they said, and I quote, "He sounds just like Walter Cronkite." So I just wish I could have had some videos of this little 3-foot-tall guy saying, "Hi, so this is Jesus, and the wise men came, and it was all cool," and stuff like that. Must have been hilarious. And then in high school, I got into radio club, and people said, "Oh, you have to go into the radio," and I wasn't really interested in being a DJ. But there was always that possibility. And then when we moved out to Seattle, I went ahead and put a voice demo together and got an agent. Because when I'd committed to becoming an actor, you do anything. You're constantly scraping the floor to find acting jobs because professional theater isn't always going to be there, and you have to figure out a way to keep the bills paid. And so I got an agent, and and this was even before Myst came out. There were no video games at all that needed voice actors. And so I was doing commercials, and I did some movies and some TV shows and stuff like that. But in 1995, I think, I got my first audition for a video game. And it was breakfast cereal. What is it? I forget the name of it. There was that one, and then there was Betrayal at Antara. I got 2 or 3 auditions, and of course back then, all the actors in town would actually go down to a recording studio to audition, and they'd put us all on this great big 1-inch reel of tape, 1-inch wide tape, and that they'd have to mail off to the people who were doing the game. And we'd wait around for 2, 4, 6 weeks sometimes before we ever heard back. So that has changed a great deal. But anyway, I got these jobs. Spy Fox Breakfast Food, and the Betrayal at Antara were my first 2 games. And at that point, I was doing theater, and I was doing commercial work, and TVs and movies and whatever came up through my agent. But she at that point would get me auditions to video games, and I would more often than not get the gig. So, and I started doing all kinds of things: Total Annihilation, No One Lives Forever 1 and 2, The Suffering 1 and 2, weird things like Championship Bass Fishing and SWAT 2, and all these games. And then about 2000 or so, I got my first gig working for Valve, and I was all the citizens in Half-Life 2. And that's the first time that Ellen and I worked on the same game together, even though Valve didn't know that we were married to each other because we have different last names, but they called her in to be the Overwatch in Half-Life 2. And then they hired us both for TF2 as well. I was the sniper and she was the announcer. And they still didn't know that we were married until they booked us on the same day one time in consecutive sessions. And Ellen went in first, and she said, "Well, you're going to be working with my husband next." And they went, "Sorry?" And they, "Yeah, John Lowrie and I are married." And so they thought that was hilarious. And so after we did TF2 and she did the Portal games and all that kind of stuff, they thought it would be hilarious if we would be the bickering married couple at the end of Left 4 Dead when you hear the houseboat, guy on the houseboat radio with his wife in the background fighting with him. And so that they actually used us as man and wife in one game. But that's kind of how it happened. I mean, I got into acting in theater, and when I got an agent, I just started, doing auditions, and a lot of the gigs I got were voiceover gigs.
Just kept going up from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a cool story.
Yeah. Because my first acting gig, I was playing banjo and guitar in the pit orchestra of this Broadway show, and then the star had to go back to New York. This is a European tour, and his understudy stepped up and started playing his role, and that guy's understudy stepped up and playing his role. And we got to Palermo, Sicily, and the percussionist in the orchestra had been pissed off at the producers for a long time, and he lived in Germany, and so we played our last show in Graz, Austria, and had a week off to make our way down Italy, down to Sicily, and he just didn't tell anyone, and he went home. And so when we got to Palermo, we were about to open in Palermo, and we didn't have a drummer. And so the conductor comes up to me and says, "Hey, John, have you ever played traps? Have you ever played drums?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I've played that." And so he said, "Okay, great." And so we were wandering around the basement of this 18th century Italian opera house looking for a kick bass and a hi-hat. And after we found those, a snare drum and toms and a ride cymbal and stuff like that were pretty easy to find. And then, glockenspiel and tubular bells and all this kind of stuff. So I had my banjo on one side of me, my guitar on the other side of me. I was playing drums, I pick up the banjo, I pick up the guitar, I play some more drums, I play some chimes. I was doing all this kind of stuff. Then, the guy playing the role that the understudy of the star used to play got sick. And his understudy decided to grandstand and said, "I'm not going to go on unless you give me more money," and all this stuff. And they said, "Okay, screw you, we're just going to have John go on as, playing the star role, and have the guy who's playing the star now go back to play his original role. And we'll have the violist play percussion, and John play some guitar and banjo backstage as Red." So that was my first paid acting gig. And the role that I played didn't have any songs, and so I just told jokes to a bunch of Sicilians who didn't speak English. It was great. But that was my first paid acting gig.
That sounds like a fun first gig.
It's been all weirder than that since then, so it's been a lot of fun.
So, what are some tips and tricks you have for upcoming voice acting?
First, I would say is learn how to act, and the second thing I'd say is don't plan on being a voice actor in video games per se. Right? If you're going to be an actor, you are going to be trying to get gigs any way you can. And if you can act on film, if you can act behind a microphone, if you can act on stage, you're going to be stitching together all this stuff to try to make your way until you break into something and start being able to do just one thing. But even so, I mean, if you look at J.K. Simmons, he's made he's been Batman and all these movies, but now he's doing mostly voice work. So there are a lot of actors that you can say that about that voice work is. I mean, it's great. I love voice work. You don't have to get dressed up. You don't have to get into makeup. You don't have to wait for people to set lights. You don't have to even wait for other actors. You can show up in your pajamas and still do your work. But you need to have your chops. You need to have your acting chops first. And then for voice acting in particular, the challenge of being a voice actor is that you're making it all up. You're not around any other actors. You're not on a set. You're not in a costume. And a lot of times you don't even know what the other person is saying. You're just given a bunch of your lines. And so you need to be good at making up the situation in your head and living in that situation, even though there is nothing around you to clue you into that's where you are. If you're in a big battle, you have to have that battle in your head. If you're, I don't know, whatever you're doing, it all has to be there, made up in your own imagination. Other than that, the best way I know is to make a voice demo, and the best way I know to make a voice demo is to email the voice agencies, the talent agencies in the nearest large city to you, and ask them who they would recommend to make your voice demo. Because your voice demo is basically like your headshot or your resume or your storefront. You want it to sound absolutely professional, because that is the first glimpse that anybody's going to get of you. So, you're going to pay between $500 and $1,000 to put a voice demo together, but it's worth it. I mean, it's how people are going to get to know you. And then shop around and get yourself an agent. Now, that just means shopping your voice demo. Put together a website these days with your voice demo on it, and then call up agents or email them and say, here, my voice demo is here. You can go to this website. Because an agent is basically a gatekeeper. Big companies like Valve aren't going to go on Voice123 or these other, internet voiceover sites. They don't want to get thousands and thousands and thousands of auditions. They want to get a few auditions from really good people. And if you have an agent, the agent decides who is the best fit for the particular job that particular company wants to do right then. And so, if you go on Voice123, which is, you can join for, I think, $45, $50 a year, and they'll send you auditions. But remember, anybody can be on there. So any audition that's been up there for more than a half an hour, there's probably already 1,000 people who auditioned. And just imagine yourself wanting to cast somebody. How many auditions could you listen to before you just went insane?
Yeah.
So they're only going to listen to about the first 50, maybe 100. So just, if you're on Voice123, just get on. Any audition that comes up right there when you're on, get on right away, because you want to be one of those first 50.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot better just to get yourself an agent. And that's the short version, really, of how to become a voice actor.
Okay. How early would you say to get an agent? Because I know, some people have said try doing smaller works on your own firm. Like for me personally as a voice actor, in my voice acting experience, I've done different voices for people on YouTube animations and stuff like that.
Right. Well, there's no reason not to get an agent. It's going to be easier and easier to get an agent the more stuff you've done. So don't let not having an agent stop you from working on any project. I think the harder decision is when to join the union, because once you join the union, then you can't do non-union work, and that's every actor just has to balance that out. Am I ready to join? And usually it's a decision that's kind of made for you. If you are offered a great role in a great project that's a union project, well then go ahead, join the union. But as far as getting an agent, you should try to get an agent as soon as you can, because they're your representation. They're going to be, they're the like I said, the gatekeeper. The auditions come to them, and they're going to farm them out to their people. So you're going to have access to better jobs if you have an agent. But you may not be able to get one right away. You may, and I would say, don't bug agents weekly, but I'd say bug them 3 times a year. If you haven't got an agent yet, go back to the agents that you've talked to before in 4 months and say, hey, I'm still doing this. I've done these projects now. You can see these here on YouTube and there on YouTube. And just keep at it. Because once you get an agent, you're just going to be in better shape. But because you don't have an agent yet is no reason not to work. Get any job you can.
All right. So that's the educational segment.
Okay, great.
So now let's talk about Sniper.
Great.
So I pulled some random questions from my Discord that I'm in.
Okay.
And so we have some different questions from different people. So what is your favorite aspect of Sniper / voicing his character?
Well, I think that by the time Valve asked me to audition for the Sniper, they'd already worked with me in Half-Life 2 and kind of knew me. And so, when they sent the auditions to me, they already said, we're thinking this guy's going to be an Aussie. Try that accent, try some other accents. We haven't really decided yet. And so I gave him a couple of different reads. One of them was the Aussie accent that I ended up using. Of course, I love Aussies. I mean, they're great people. They're wackadoodle, and I just love them. And I think that there is a lot of me in the Sniper. The snarkiness, the sense of humor, and stuff like that. They really wrote with me in mind. And I think that all the actors they hired to play characters in TF2 were all actors with good comic sense and good sense of humor. I think that oh, okay, right. I'll try to pick it up there. Yeah, but so I was saying that they wrote the humor with me in mind. I think, and that kind of low-key underplaying the drama of the situation. Here's a guy who's a trained killer, and his job is to go out there and kill people every day, and yet mostly, he drinks coffee and talks about showing up on time and being a professional about it. That kind of underplayed humor is just my favorite, because it's just like you walk into the local drugstore and here's the Sniper buying, I don't know, whatever he buys in the drugstore, antihistamines or something like that, and he's talking about all the people that he's offed, just because just the way you would talk about you'd complain about your job, and all the petty little squabbles he had with the spy and the scout and all that kind of stuff. It's great. And then, of course, when it got really surreal and we started wearing owl heads and dancing the samba, and conga lines and stuff like that, it was just hilarious. And I just, they really liked my improvs, and a lot of that would lead the writers in new directions, and they'd write more lines for me off of some weird thing that I would say. And it was just a gas.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Oh, I know, like, those owl headlines are definitely a little ridiculous.
And it was like, the guys just sat around thinking, okay, how can we make this even stupider? And, they came up with some great ideas.
All right. Then we have, how many jars of Girardi do you keep on hand?
Well, the great thing about Girardi is you make it yourself. And if I'm actually building up a stockpile, it means that I haven't been using it very much. So, it just depends on how much coffee I have, really.
Okay. What's your favorite thing about Sniper as a character?
Well, he gets to sit up where it's quiet and safe and, insult everybody.
That's a good answer.
And the fact that he makes his own biological weapons. That has...
yeah, hey. So you talked about how you're married to Ellen McLean.
Uh-huh.
Is there any, interesting day-to-day interactions, like Sniper talking to GLaDOS just out of the blue or something?
People ask us that a lot, and, I've gone to saying, well, only when we're having sex. And when we're having sex, she's all about deadly neurotoxin, and I'm all about headshots. So that's, it's just death and destruction from one end to the other.
Oh, dear. Oh, all right. So, what do you think about the fandom aspect of the Sniper? Have you seen some of the things that have popped up on YouTube and Reddit and stuff with Sniper?
Yeah. Now, I haven't really... I know there are all kinds of videos and stuff like that, and I haven't seen very many of those. Most of the interaction with fans that I've done are at fan cons, and most of the art that I've seen has been generated by those folks, and it's just been amazing. And some of the stuff that I have seen online has been hilarious, and that's my thing. As long as it's funny, I really don't care what it does. But the creativity that fans bring to it, and the situations that they think up, and just the weird things they have the guys do, to me is hilarious. I love it.
It's always kind of interesting. It's like what people come up with. Like, one of the more recent ones that the Winglet did, which is they're one of the like more professional TF2 animation channels on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They made a quarantine kind of esque video related to the toilet paper crisis.
Oh yeah.
Except it was Sniper runs out of ammo. And then when he went to the store to get more, Scout had taken all of it.
See, now that's great. I mean, that's the kind of, just petty little day-to-day office stuff that makes the TF2 so funny.
Yeah. And that was the other thing, was he was looking around like, all the ammo's gone, but there was still full stock of the original, or the whatever that one sniper rifle's called. That's terrible.
Oh, huh? Yeah. Gotcha.
The one that no one uses.
Right.
Oh. Alright, well, is there anything you'd like to say to everyone watching?
Stay safe and stay healthy. That's what's going on right now. I mean, I think, the nice thing about online video games is you can get together with your pals and talk and have a good time and not infect anybody. So that's great. Yeah, and we're glad to see that you're doing well as well. Yeah. I mean, we've been locked down here in Seattle since March, and we lost some work because of it. But we're fine financially, so that's fine. And we live in a quiet neighborhood in Seattle, and we get to walk around outside and just hang out. And I'm also I'm involved in a corporation. Me and my partner own a corporation that produces audio dramas, full cast audio dramas. Ooh. And of course that's where I last worked with Rick May, but I also, we work with Gary Schwartz all the time, Dennis Bateman all the time. Jim French was the guy who started the company, and of course he passed away 3 years ago, but he was in Half-Life 2 and Dota 2, although he was not in TF2. But Jen Taylor and Jen Hammond and just a lot of voice actors that people know from video games work in our company. And I voiced Sherlock Holmes in the Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And we have a kind of a gumshoe, hard luck, private eye show called The Adventures of Harry Nile. We just started a new series called Murder and Murdochs, which is a mother and daughter team who have a real hard time getting along, and it's hilarious. So I'm doing a lot of that, but of course I can do that from home. And we're just starting to get back into the studio. So, we're dealing with it. The challenge is to keep everybody safe while we're still trying to get some work done.
Cool. Well, if you would, I would also like to put the link to those down below so people can find them.
Do you want me to write that?
Just afterwards you can send it to me.
Okay, it's harrynile.com. harrynile.com. And we have over 740 episodes up now.
Awesome.
And all kinds of different shows. So.
Maybe people will find entertainment in that.
Yeah. The great thing is you don't have to look at it. You can do something else and just listen to the story.
It's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Lowrie.
Absolutely.
This has been
and all the folks out there who miss Rick May, we miss him too. He was a great guy, great actor, and a great person to work with. And we're sorry he had to go.
I have seen more togetherness in the TF2 community than ever before with that.
Yeah. He was a good guy, and I got to work with him on his very last gig. If you want to hear the last 2 gigs that he had, they're the most recent Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and you can find those at harrynile.com.
I'll definitely be putting the link to that.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and would you give us a proper Australian farewell?
Good night, Mike. You know, keep your head down, you wanker.
All right. Thanks for your time.